Hello, friends, and welcome to Adventures in Pixieland. My name's Amy. I'm an ordained minister, and we're in Bible study. We are starting a brand new book of the Bible today. We are in Leviticus. Now, this is Leviticus, Leviticus. So, now we're starting to get into more of, again, the Mosaic Law, which I know to some people is a surprise that it's beyond the Ten Commandments, but it is, though. So, because remember, so the idea of this culture is not a nation of kings. It's not a nation of nobility. It's a nation of priests. That's what he wanted. A nation of priests. This is making up the laws that the priests need to live by. Leviticus. Okay, so it gets really specific. And what you eventually get to at the time of Jesus is that you have the Sadducees who don't believe in the soul at all. They believe in the law of man, which that's what this is to them. And then there's the Pharisees who believe in the soul. And they're very popular amongst the people. And they're more of our imprint for what makes a priest. Whereas for when we're starting to think of what it looks like to be, say, a person of faith in a political position, or in a, if you were a lawyer, but you also had faith, and you believed in your faith-based laws, this is what that looks like. That's the more of the imprint. So let's jump in. The burnt offering. The Lord, in case I forgot to mention, we're in the NIV, and we will be through the end of 2025. We're going to start the KJV in 2026. We're going to read as many versions of the Bible as we can. There's a lot, though, over 400. So we're not going to get to all of them, but we're going to get to as many as we can. The Lord called to Moses and spoke to him from the tent of meeting, because that's where we left off last time. He's just going to hang out in the tent of meeting, and, mostly people aren't going to go in there. Except Aaron, who has to wear belts, or his sons, who have to wear belts when they go in there, so they don't get smited. He said, "Speak to the Israelites, and say to them, when any of you brings an offering to the Lord, bring as your offering an animal from either the herd or the flock. If the offering is a burnt offering from the herd, he is to offer a male without defect. He must present it at the entrance to the tent of meeting, so that it, he, will be acceptable to the Lord. He is to lay his hands on the head of the burnt offering, and it will be accepted on his behalf to make atonement for him." This is pretty specific, so basically only men bringing these things. "He is to slaughter the young bull before the Lord, and then Aaron's sons, the priests, shall bring the blood and sprinkle it against the altar on all sides at the entrance of the tent of meeting. He is to skin the burnt offering and cut it into pieces." I'm very sorry if you're a vegan out there. You probably find all of this to be very atrocious. But it's what's written, so it's what I'm reading. Also understand that the sacrifice of animals was supposed to make them stop and not just rampantly sin. Just because you were sacrificing someone's life. So the sons of Aaron, the priest, are to put fire on the altar and arrange wood on the fire. Then Aaron's sons, the priests, shall arrange the pieces, including the head and the fat, on the burning wood that is on the altar. He is to wash the inner parts and the legs with water, and the priest is to burn all of it on the altar. It is a burnt offering, an offering made by fire, an aroma pleasing to the Lord. If the offering is burnt from the flock, either from the sheep or the goats, so the herd, cows and bulls, oxen, if you will. Okay. He is to slaughter it at the north side of the altar before the Lord. And Aaron's sons, the priests, shall sprinkle its blood against the altar and all sides. I think sometimes they said donkeys too, but not common. Because I don't think donkeys are something they're supposed to eat. But I don't really. Keep going. He is to cut it into pieces, and the priest shall arrange them, including the head and the fat, on the burning wood that is on the altar. He is to wash the inner parts and the legs with water, and the priest is to bring all of it and burn it on the altar. It is a burnt offering, an offering made by fire, a pleasing aroma to the Lord. So this would mean that they have to know how to butcher animals in order to do this job. Just so you understand. That's one of their, so this is one of their primary responsibilities. If they're going to bring these burnt offerings, besides making sure that they're purely sanctified so God doesn't smite them, they have to know how to butcher an animal. Or they're not going to be able to bring them the right stuff. Now, I do suspect that this was commonplace knowledge back at the time that this was, because there were no grocery stores, so you had to know how to butcher an animal if you wanted to feed your family. If you had flocks and herds, you probably knew how to butcher an animal. Most people were some form of herder or farmer at this point, or, like a vineyard, olive oils, whatever it was, or they worked for one of those people during this time frame in history. Okay, so there weren't all these types of professions we have now. Verse 14. If the offering to the Lord is burnt offering of birds, he is to offer a dove or a young pigeon. The priest shall bring it to the altar, wring off the head, it's too terrible, and burn it on the altar. Its blood shall be drained out on the side of the altar, and he is to remove the crop with its contents, or the crop and the feathers. The Hebrew word for this is uncertain. Okay. But I understand what they're talking about. And throw it on the east side of the altar where the ashes are. He shall tear it open by the wings, not severing it completely. And then the priest shall burn it on the wood that is on the fire for the altar. It is a burnt offering, an offering made by fire, an aroma pleasing to the Lord. The bird offerings, pretty specifically, were to make it so that if you were a person who was not having flocks or anything else, you could go catch one and then offer it. Because you likely would have gone and caught one to eat it. And quails and a bunch of other stuff. If you were living in the middle of the desert where meat was scarce, the meat you could find, you would likely be willing to eat. There are a lot of native tribes out here who would tell you exactly that. So were in the history of them. Unfortunately, there's only so many left in the area that I'm living in. But there are tribes still out here. So if you were to ever come to the area, you can feel free to attend all of their various museums, which I highly recommend, and learn more about how one does have to survive in the desert if you wanted to have an understanding. Until next time, friends. Hello, friends, and welcome to Adventures in Pixieland. My name's Amy. I'm an ordained minister. We're in Bible study. We are in Leviticus, and we're doing chapter 2. We're in the Niv, and we will be through 2025. We want to read as many versions of the Bible. We will get to the KJV in 2026, the Catholic Bible in 2028, and then we've got like 3 more versions up there right now, including the ESV, the Good News Bible, and then the new KJV, so that we would be able to see what the differences are between the 1873 and when they edited it again. Because I don't know. I've never actually looked at the new KJV before. So, in this video, though, we are in Leviticus, or the continuation of the Mosaic Law. We are in chapter 2, and we are doing all of chapter 2, which it really is only going to verse 16. And this one we're dealing with grain offerings. The previous one, the burnt offerings, were all about meat things. So, which was, I stopped partway through and apologize to any vegetarians who might be watching. This would probably be more what you would have been doing. Because, they needed offerings of vegetables and grain and all kinds of other things too. So it's like you could have survived in their world and not had to, eat any of that if you didn't want to. You might have been limited to what they had in the area, though. So, the grain offering. But they at least had that. When someone brings a grain offering to the Lord, his offering is to be of fine flour. He is to pour oil on it, put incense on it, and take it to Aaron's sons, the priests. The priest shall take a handful of the fine flour and oil together with the incense and burn this memorial portion on the altar, an offering made by fire, an aroma pleasing to the Lord. The rest of the grain offering belongs to Aaron and his sons. This is a most holy part of the offering made to the Lord by fire. If you bring a grain offering baked in an oven, it is to consist of fine flour, cakes made without yeast, and mixed with oil, or, you got C, and wafers made without yeast and spread with oil. So cracker form or just unrisen bread. And you're like, there's a difference? Yes. Yes, there is, actually. There's a difference in that dough. So if your grain offering is prepared on a griddle, it is to be made of fine flour mixed with oil and without yeast. Crumble it and pour oil on it. It is a grain offering. So you've got to pour the oil on it for it to be a grain offering. If your grain offering is cooked in a pan, then it is to be made of fine flour and oil. Bring the grain offering made of these things to the Lord. Present it to the priest, who shall take it to the altar. He shall make a memorial portion from the grain offering and burn it on the altar as an offering made by fire, an aroma pleasing to the Lord. The rest of the grain offering belongs to Aaron and his sons. It is a most holy part of the offering made to the Lord by fire. So if you wanted to bring baked goods to them instead, you were allowed to do that as well. Every grain offering you bring to the Lord must be made without yeast. For you are not to burn any yeast or honey in an offering made to the Lord by fire. That's interesting. The yeast part, okay, because, the unleavened bread. But honey, either. You may bring them to the Lord as an offering of first fruits, but they are not to be offered on the altar as a pleasing aroma. Right, so you can bring them as an offering, but they're not going to be burnt. The priests are going to use them. That's what that means. Season all your grain offerings with salt. Do not leave the salt of the covenant of your God out of your grain offering. Add salt to all your offerings. Okay? Who knew, right? God has a preference there. If you bring a grain offering of first fruits to the Lord, offer crushed heads of new grain roasted in the fire. Okay. Put oil and incense on it. It is a grain offering. Then the priest shall burn the memorial portion of the crushed grain and the oil together with all the incense and an offering made to the Lord by fire. So that's if you didn't turn the grain into flour and it was still raw grain instead. You can offer that too. But you still have to put oil on it and incense. And I find it interesting about the salt. Now, I know, salt. That was so, they had, they were there's mountains of salt around the Dead Sea. There's a whole bunch of salt out here in the desert, too. In fact, a lot of the salt that people consume, like Morton's salt, They get that from out here in the desert by me. Not in near a city. They're way out in the middle of the desert. They have entire plants, out there taking salt out of the ground. So there are places where it is quite plentiful, and then there are places in which it is quite valuable. Now it's quite commonplace. But back then, when things were harder to move around, it was one of those things, kind of like sort of among the Silk Road. Remember, the Silk Road basically ran right through this area too. So, all kinds of valuable things. Until the next video, friends. Hello, friends. Welcome to Adventures in Pixieland. My name's Amy. I'm an ordained minister. We're in Bible study. We are in the NIV, and we will be through the end of 2025. And the goal is to read as many versions of the Bible as we can. So, there will be further versions. In 2026, we'll start the KJV. Not the new KJV. That's coming sometime later. So, in this video, though, we are in Leviticus. And again, this is a continuation of what is the Mosaic Law. And this, what's in here, isn't even necessarily all of it, okay? So, chapter 3, verse 1, and we're going to do the entire chapter 3, but that really only takes us to verse 17, so it's not a very long. The fellowship offering. If someone is offering a fellowship offering, and then you got a footnote of A. Okay, so, traditionally a peace offering. So, instead of a sin offering, it's more like, God, I love you so much. Here's a burnt offering in thanks for all the wonderful things you bring me. Like a fellowship offering. If someone is offering a fellowship offering, and he offers an animal from the herd, whether male or female, he is to present it before the Lord, an animal without defect. He is to lay his hands on the head of his offering and slaughter it at the entrance to the tent of meeting. Then Aaron's sons, the priests, shall sprinkle the blood against the altar on all sides, from the fellowship offering to the... I'm sorry, I had to pause there for a brief second. From the fellowship offering, he is to bring a sacrifice made to the Lord by fire, all the fat that covers the inner parts or is connected to them, both kidneys with the fat on them near the loins, and the covering of the liver, which he will remove with the kidneys. The liver, which he will remove with the kidneys. Okay, so, yeah. Again, you have to know how to butcher an animal to do this job. Then Aaron's sons are to burn it on the altar on the top of the burnt offering that is on the burning wood as an offering made by fire, an aroma pleasing to the Lord. If he offers an animal from the flock as a fellowship offering to the Lord, so again, herd, animals with hooves, flock, goats, which I know we still think of as with hooves, but goats and sheep, those kinds of hooves. If he is offering an animal from the flock as a fellowship offering to the Lord, he is to offer a male or female without defect. If he offers a lamb, he is to present it before the Lord. He is to lay his hands on the head of his offering and slaughter it in front of the tent of meeting. Then Aaron's son shall sprinkle its blood against the altar on all sides. From the fellowship offering, he is to bring a sacrifice made to the Lord by fire. Its fat, the entire fat tail, cut close to the backbone, so the entire tail, The fat that covers the inner parts or is connected to them, both kidneys with the fat on them near the loins, and the covering of the liver, which he is to remove with the kidneys. The priest shall burn them on the altar as food, an offering made to the Lord by fire. If his offering is a goat, he is to present it before the Lord. He is to lay hands on its head and slaughter it in front of the tent of meeting. Then Aaron's son shall sprinkle its blood against the altar on all sides. From what he offers, he is to make this offering to the Lord by fire. All the fat that covers the inner parts are connected to them, both the kidneys with the fat that on them near the loins, and the covering of the liver, which he will remove with the kidneys. The priest shall burn them on the altar as food, an offering made by fire, a pleasing aroma. All the fat is the Lord's. So you understand. The Lord, this is a lasting ordinance for generations to come. Wherever you live, you must not eat any fat or any blood. Doesn't that just ruin some people's dinner who like things medium well or less? Actually, medium rare. Medium well is okay. Because just because you can see that pink doesn't mean it's blood. And then, if you're slow cooking, all that fat melts down. And you can just cut the rest of it off. So, but I'm a big fan of slow cooking myself. Until the next video, friends. Hello, friends, and welcome to Adventures in Pixieland. We are in Bible Study Part 2. We are still in the Niv, and we'll be there through 2025. But then I promise you, when we start the next Bible, we will never read this Bible on this thing again, unless we are looking at these words and going, this one says this, and that one says that. Why? First, we're going to read versions, and then eventually we'll do word by word critiques. I've got a particular way that I want to start that. And I'm very excited about that. And that might start next year, but it might not start until 2026. We'll have to see how each year goes. Because, over here we're trying to do my will to thy will. And we're trying to, move forward in faith, peace, and love. Because we're trying to create the environment we want to live in and cultivate. And that is why I will also start with, when we're in the Book of Mark, we're going to finish the Book of Mark chapter 1, verses 29 through, here, pages want to stick together on me. Through the end. So it looks like 45? That's really long, 45. Wow, okay. Usually there are only so many sentences, and that one is like a paragraph by itself. So, all right. But I want to say at the end of that last video, I said, because we covered evil spirits, I had some words to say about faith. And absolutely, because it's part of holding oneself accountable. I absolutely, in the course of my life, it's from childhood even to present day, have had moments of doubt into whether or not, moments of being afraid about whether or not Jesus was really with me in the face of what feels to me like evil energy, even if it's coming from a flesh and blood person. So I'm not saying I expect people to be perfect, because we're humans and we're not perfect. I myself have been guilty of not always believing he was with me in every moment. Doubt is normal. Spiritual strength is finding a way, especially spiritual maturity with that strength, is finding a way to bring yourself back into that place of peace and love so you can properly convey the Holy Spirit to whoever is around you, so you can be a proper, a disciple, properly showing your faith through how you live your life, is finding a way to bring yourself back into balance, because we are responsible and accountable for, whatever we project out into the world and how we interact both with our world and our faith. So when you've been in a state of sin, you have to do contrition. And that does mean being willing to admit. And that's when I think it's one of the most challenging things about being a minister, is you have to be willing to admit your sins, especially if somebody is confessing something to you. And that is totally normal part of psychology. People tend to, if you confess something to them, confess something to you. Confession is good for the soul. And people do want to feel safe, because we feel like we can't be forgiven and properly do our penance if nobody knows our guilt. And we're trying to wash our guilt away because our sins have already been forgiven. It's our guilt that we're trying to deal with, not really so much the sin itself. Jesus has already forgiven us. As the moment we're willing to stop doing what we know is a sin, apologize, like make restitution to whoever you sinned against. It doesn't matter. It could be God. It could be an individual. Whatever it is, you have to stop in order to be saying sorry. Because you can't be like, I hear your feelings, but F your feelings. Just forgive me anyway while I keep doing this thing that I know hurts you. That doesn't work like that. You have to stop doing the thing that hurts them, or you're not sorry. And you stop, you apologize, you do what you need to do to fix the relationship, or you are willing to walk away from the relationship with light and love, because there's no way they feel like they can forgive you. If they can't forgive you when you're willing to, engage with the world different, they need their time to go heal. You can't force it on them. If you're trying to force the interaction when they've asked you for time to go heal, you're not respecting their feelings. That's not how respect works. And you can't love somebody and use force on them to get the emotional reaction you're looking for. I don't know who needs to hear that, but that's among the things that need to come out first. So Jesus heals the many. Mark 29. As soon as they left the synagogue, they went to James and John to the home of Simon and Andrew. Simon's mother-in-law was in bed with a fever, and they told Jesus about her. So he went to her, took her hand, and helped her. The fever left her, and she began to wait on them. That evening after sunset, the people brought to Jesus all the sick and demon-possessed. The whole town gathered at the door, and Jesus healed many who had various diseases. He drove out many demons, and he would not let the demons speak because they knew who he was. So that's the first thing. Demons will try to trick you. Like, that's what it says over and over again. Whether you really believe in them or not is up to you. What it says over and over again in the Old Testament and the New Testament of the Bible is you can't even let the demons speak. Because if they can speak, they're looking for a way to trick you. They will try to trick you with your own words. Sometimes knowing when to shut up is the biggest blessing that God could ever give you. He flat out says, especially if you look at the Proverbs, he uses the wicked's own words to expose who they are. If you're Gen X like me, you find that to be funny. And also, I'd like to note in the book of Mark versus the book of Matthew, you'll find that Mark is very much condensing down, almost in a summary form, what Matthew does in long form about the life and teachings of Jesus. Jesus prays in a solitary place. Verse 35. Very early in the morning, while it was still dark, Jesus got up, left the house, and went off to a solitary place where he prayed. Simon and his companions went to look for him. And when they found him, they exclaimed, "Everyone is looking for you." Jesus replied, "Let us go somewhere else, to the nearby villages, so I can preach there also. This is why I have come." So he did not want to stay in one place. So he traveled throughout Galilee, preaching in their synagogues and driving out demons, getting the good news out. A man with leprosy. Verse 40. A man with leprosy, the Greek word used for various diseases affecting the skin, not necessarily leprosy. So it's not like every person they're talking about had limbs falling off or skin being eaten away. They could have had boils. They could have had other medical conditions that we now use different terms for. Just in the Old Testament. And when we get into that next year, I'm going to explain why. I'm even going to use some science. Because there's an overlay between the two. They didn't have the science words. So God used different words that the kids could understand. So it wasn't always leprosy. It could be from not bathing properly, is what I'm trying to say. Came to him and begging on his knees, if you were willing, you could make me clean. Filled with compassion, Jesus reached out and touched the man. I am willing. Be clean. Immediately, the leprosy left him, and he was cured. Jesus sent him away once he was with a strong warning. See that you don't tell this to anyone, but go show yourself to the priest and offer sacrifices that Moses commanded for your cleansing as a testimony to them. So you see, he said tell them to go keep the same law for the time being. He wasn't telling them to disobey Jewish law. Instead, he went out and began talking freely, spreading the news. Of course. As a result, Jesus could no longer enter a town openly, but stayed outside in lonely places. Yet the people still came to him from everywhere. So, he was hoping he could just quietly go about the countryside, healing people at random and not ever getting celebrity notice. And God said, child, when I have decided that something is to be a blessing of the world, no one can hide it. Because, you could look at that in, one way, but really, was that, just somebody disobeying Jesus and therefore sinning? Or was that God at work, happily proclaiming his incredibly humble, because this is what we need to be the Messiah, incredibly humble son who doesn't want to take any fame and recognition? Because if you wanted fame and recognition, wouldn't that be pride? Would he still be the Messiah? You don't need to brag on you. Let's keep that as a message for today. You don't need to brag on you. God will brag on you for you. And God will send people to brag on you. People who love you will not only defend you in the rooms you're in, they will also not be ashamed to tell people how awesome you are. So let's remember that as we go about the world. No, finding people to put in their place. Let's find people to praise with our love instead. Remember? Exceptional healing through love. That's the goal. Hello, friends, and welcome to Adventures in Pixieland. My name's Amy. I'm an ordained minister, and we're in Bible study. We are in the NIV, and we will be through the end of 2025. And then we'll start the KJV next year. In this video, we are in Psalms, Book 1, Psalm 35. We're starting at verse 17, and we are going all the way to the end, which is verse 28. So let us jump in. O Lord, how long will you look on? Rescue my life from their ravages, my precious life from these lions. I will give you thanks in the great assembly. Among throngs of people, I will praise you. Let not those gloat over me, who are my enemies without cause. Let not those who hate me without reason maliciously wink the eye. They do not speak peaceably, but devise false accusations against those who live quietly in the land. They gape at me and say, aha, aha, with our own eyes. We've seen it. I doubt they know what they're seeing. Oh Lord, you have seen this. Be not silent. Do not be far from me, O Lord. Awake and rise to my defense. Contend for me, my God and Lord. Vindicate me in your righteousness, O Lord my God. Do not let them gloat over me. Do not let them think, aha, just what we wanted. Or say, we have swallowed him up. May all who gloat over my distress be put to shame and confusion. May all who exalt themselves over me be clothed with shame and disgrace. May those who delight in my vindication shout for joy and gladness. May they always say, the Lord be exalted, who delights in the well-being of his servant. My tongue will speak of your righteousness and of your praises all day long. And amen to that.